Coming up, a surprise royal interview at the end of the show. But first, like one of those unwanted subscriptions that you just can't cancel, Prince Harry is back. Yes, the disloyal Duke, the Duke of Royal Hazard, has touched down in the United Kingdom, the country of his birth, laying a wreath at the grave of Queen Elizabeth II. Of course, the late, great Elizabeth passed away 3 years ago. To this day, may she rest in peace. But what an extraordinary insult to the memory and legacy of the Queen that her spoiled, selfish, cruel grandson should take this opportunity on the 3rd anniversary of her passing to indulge in what is a glorified public relations exercise, flouncing over to the United Kingdom from LAX Airport in Hollywood, California, coming to Windsor, making sure that he's secretly photographed to lay the wreath with his terribly sad face. Oh, poor Prince Harry, I'm so sad about the Queen. Yeah, you're very sad now, are you, Harry? Well, maybe you should have thought about that when you wrote an extraordinarily cruel book about the royal family and when you appeared on television in America in front of Oprah Winfrey, who used to be a great person and a great broadcaster, but who has now completely lost the plot. And it was an interview in which you allowed the royal family to be characterized as a bunch of racists. I can't even say the word because it's so wrong. It's such a powerful word. And racism is the worst imaginable thing. So I'm not going to use that word about the royal family, who are a decent and venerated group of people who lead the United Kingdom. They lead the Commonwealth and they are fabulous role models, apart from Andrew, but no one's perfect. But what an insult to Queen Elizabeth that William should make such a fuss coming over to England. Oh yeah, he says he's here for the Well Child Awards. He insists on coming here every year for the Well Child Awards. What does Harry really think of charities? Don't forget that he co-created Sente Barley, which is now a smoking ruin of a charity and a public relations dumpster fire. What about Invictus, where a whole bunch of the participants don't want Harry as patron anymore because he's so toxic? The bottom line is that this is not about the Well Child Awards. It isn't. And it's not about the memory of Queen Elizabeth II. It's about one thing and one thing only, and it's about the same thing that always motivates this young man. Himself. It's all about Harry. It's all about the H-bomb. It's all about my husband. He's deeply selfish. He's deeply narcissistic. He's deeply cruel. And what he did to the Queen while she was still alive should be considered an unforgivable offence and should lead to him being precluded from invoking her memory, turning up at the grave. Did you know that he needed permission from the royal authorities to go to her grave on the Windsor estate? They should have said no. Don't let him anywhere near the memorial to an extraordinary woman, one of the greatest Britons that ever lived. She's up there with Winston Churchill, Queen Victoria, and Sir Elton John, right? My 3 favourite figures of British history. Luckily, EJ's still going. I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The other 2 are gone. The Queen was an exemplary global figure. She was an historic icon. And yet, in the final years of her life, she was made miserable by the soap opera that was sparked by Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Double Standards. And do you know the Queen was so good to Harry and Meghan? First of all, when Harry and Meghan arrived, when Harry fell in love with Meghan, I don't think he fell in love with her, by the way. I think that Harry fell under her spell. Quite a different thing. He thinks that he fell in love with her. He may still think that he's in love with her. She's a pathological narcissist who love bombs people. But love bombing is what controlling characters do. It's not the same as love. Love bombing is the manipulation of someone with love signals in order to get them to be subservient to you and to yield to your will. That is the dynamic of the narcissistic, abusive behavior. And I think that Meghan Markle is a copper-bottomed, definitive example of such a syndrome. And I don't know why she's like that. I suspect childhood trauma. It can't have helped that Doria was missing in action for years, whilst poor old Thomas Markle had to do the heavy lifting and pay the bills and raise his daughter alone. He raised his daughter alone. Where was Doria? I don't know. Was she smoking weed and chasing other men or lesbians? She was, sleeping with women. I know. I'm not judgmental. Each to their own. But don't cast Doria as this angelic figure who gets an incredible tribute on her birthday from Meghan Markle. By the way, with a photograph that, according to your good selves, is about 8 years old. Where's Doria? Has she left the Montecito mansion? Is she sick of Harry and Meghan as well? Where's she gone? Where's Doria? But the bottom line is she gets this amazing tribute on her birthday. Thomas Markle, who has been the most extraordinary father to Meghan and brought her into the world and supported her career and spent $500,000 on her education, always loved her. He's been completely excommunicated. Brutal. But the issue you've got is that Harry is the son of Queen Elizabeth. Sorry, the grandson. And he's the one who's responsible for the misery that he wrought upon Elizabeth while she was alive. Because yes, Meghan's been driving this. Meghan's behind everything. Meghan runs the show. That's patently clear. She's a controlling personality. Why else do you think she does that creepy calligraphy? I like my calligraphy with my accurate writing, all perfect and legible and perfect writing with my calligraphy for my husband. So she's controlling. She is all about control. You watch that TV show, We'd Love Meghan. If anybody does anything out of turn, she freaks out like that. She doesn't like it. Oh, you've got so much energy. Have you already had coffee? Oh, I'm sorry, folks. I'm furious today because I love Queen Elizabeth. She's one of the greatest Britons that ever lived. And she has to be respected and remembered. That's why I'm wearing a black tie today. I was on air for her funeral, and it was a great privilege to cover that funeral and to reflect on what was a majestic life. But thanks to Harry, yes, guided by Meghan, fine, but Harry is the grandson of Elizabeth, so the buck stops with him. And he's the one that allowed Queen Elizabeth to suffer so much in her final years. So she was getting older. She was in her mid-90s. And then she developed, serious illness, cancer. And yet, rather than battle that illness and prevail over it, and rather than enjoy her last few years on this planet as a serving monarch and a human being and a mother and a granddaughter and grandmother, I should say, and all the rest of it, rather than enjoying her last days, weeks and months, and enjoying her time with Philip, my rock, rather than that, she had to worry about the book that was coming, because Spare was not published whilst the Queen was still alive, but she knew of its existence and that she knew that it was in train, like a train wreck, like a locomotive, and it was going to absolutely destroy, potentially, the family and the institution to which the Queen had devoted her life. So she had to worry about that. Now, at a certain point, Prince Philip dies, who was a majestic human being. He was a war hero. He was brave. He was such an alpha male. He was very, very good looking. Before Elizabeth, he enjoyed the company of ladies. He liked a beer. He was a lager drinker, loved a pint. And by the way, so do I. My favorite beer is Budweiser because it's the king of beers. We know that because it says it on every bottle and every can. So here is the huge tragedy of the Queen's last days. Are you sick of biased news? Well, so am I. And that's why every morning, with my big cup of decaf in my Father's Day mug that I actually bought for myself, I read Ground News. It shows how stories are covered differently by the left, the right, and the centre. Take this one, for example, President Donald Trump's tariff crusade. Some outlets say that he's mad and is wrecking the economy. Others say that he's standing up for American jobs and will triumph. Well, Ground News shows both sides and lets you decide, because it turns out You've got a brain! Who knew? So try Ground News. Go to ground.news/Dolan or click the link below. You will get a 40% off discount from the Vantage plan. 40% off for the plan that I use for unlimited access. It is a game-changing way to consume the news. And more importantly, it will make you sound very clever at dinner parties. Ground News is subscriber funded, no billionaire overlords pulling the strings, just the unvarnished truth from every angle. What's not to like? That is ground.news/Dolan. I'll drink to that. She had to lay awake at night, worrying about the possible content of this book, Spare. What was it going to say about the family? Well, if you look at the Oprah interview and if you read Spare, it's actually worse than she could have imagined. I mean, the accusation of racism, that's worse than anything the Queen might have feared that he was going to say. She might have feared that he would say Charles wasn't a very present father or not affectionate enough or not enough hugs. And he might have complained about the stifling nature of life in the spotlight, the pressures of fame, the exhausting royal duties. You know, that was in the Queen's mind, you know, some of the stuff that she was worried that might come out. What actually came out was far worse. And in some ways, it's quite cowardly of Harry to have published this book before, after the Queen passed, because he knew full well that disgusting person. I'm sorry, I'm furious with this. But he knew full well that if he'd published Spare whilst the Queen was alive, well, first of all, I mean, she was still Queen. I'd love to know what she would have done. She may well have prosecuted him for... What is that crime if you commit a crime against your own country? Treachery? Would that do it? Something like that. Something like treachery. And, well, he is a treacherous character, isn't he? What's the other word? Should we look it up? Because I know that you'll be yelling in the comments about... what exactly? What is the name of the crime against your own country like treachery? And I know you're yelling it at me now, which is why it's very embarrassing. I wish I was better educated and more knowledgeable. Treason! Thank you very much, the internet. Treason is the crime of betraying one's own country, typically by helping its enemies or attempting to overthrow its government or monarch. It's all there on my computer. There's nowhere to hide. Treason, the crime of betraying one's own country. Did Harry betray his own country by characterizing the media as racist, which they're not? We have an incredible free media here. British newspapers, radio, TV, incredible. By the way, a TV interview at the end of today's show. You're welcome. Ha ha! You'll enjoy it. But seriously, treachery, the crime of betraying one's own country. Well, Harry's done that. Harry betrayed Britain by characterizing the place so negatively in the podcast, in the books. And if you attack the royal family and call them racist, well, then you're attacking Britain, because the royal family is Britain. Because the King and previously Queen Elizabeth, they are the head of state. So that's our president here in England. In America, it's a little complicated because you have the head of government and the head of state rolled into one. Rolled into one. You've got the head of government and the head of state. And although it's two titles, there's one human being that takes both roles, and they're called the president. Is a fact. Which, by the way, this is why the Americans are in such a pickle, and I love America. Didn't you know, I'm not Meghan Markle anymore. I'm Meghan Sussex. Soon to be Meghan Murdoch. I'm going to marry Rupert Murdoch because I'm into old men who have billions of dollars in the bank. Well, I like Meghan Markle. She's an attractive woman. I'm Rupert Murdoch. I've made a lot of investments in my life. I've made a lot of good investments in my life. And she's attractive. And she's got strong character. She'll make headlines. I'll put her on the front page of every newspaper that I own. And I own a lot of newspapers and TV networks. And it'll be the best $1 billion I've ever spent. I'm currently married. She can go. That old Sheila I don't even know what her name is. Maybe she is called Sheila. Who knows? I'm ready to move on, baby. I'm in my 90s. It's one last hurrah. Rupert Murdoch, you're welcome. Meghan Markle, Meghan Murdoch. Anyway, so it's complicated in America because you have the head of state and the head of government. It means that it's hard to really criticize the president politically, because then you're also criticizing the head of state and they represent the country. So it's a little bit, I think it's a little messy. What's clever about the UK, and I'll be honest, the UK is turning into a dumpster fire as we speak. We're horribly in decline, and I'm going to try and fix that. I'll do what I can. Otherwise, I'll emigrate, and I'm going to live in America, and I'm going to go somewhere fun like Wyoming. I'm going to buy a farm in Wyoming. Wyoming! That's what I'm going to do. Let me know in the comments if I run for the hills. Okay, my preferred countries, I'm looking at Canada, the United States, Canada, the United States, Australia, and New Zealand are the countries I'm looking at the moment. Although I could, je peux aller en France parce que je parle français couramment. Parce que je suis très intelligent. Je vais au cinéma avec ma tante. Elle s'appelle Rebecca. Elle est très vieux et très gentille. Elle fume beaucoup. Trop. Elle va être tôt. Peu de temps. Right. I could live in Germany. Auf die Treppe schnell. Do you know what that means? Auf die Treppe schnell. That means, hello, darling, you're wonderful. Did you know that? That's the problem with the German language. Even something really sweet like Auf die Treppe schnell means, hello, darling, you're so wonderful. What about this one? Das ist verboten dann. Das ist verboten dann, in der Eisschrank geht nichts. Nein. That means, hello, sweetie pie. Shall we have cocktails? I swear to God. I've got German family. I'm allowed to make these jokes. Okay? I've got German family, so I'm allowed to do the German jokes. You see, the point is, this is what the politically correct woke people don't understand. If I mess around with the French and the German, the Filipinos, hey, Mr. America, you got dollars? If I do that, see, then I'm loving these places. Because when you joke about places, it means you love them. It's like the men's locker room, right? I don't know if you've ever been in a men's locker room. If you're a lady, well, then how dare you? Because this is the male space. If you've been in a men's locker room, right, the way that men talk to each other, especially teammates in a sports team, they abuse each other. And that is the way that they express affection. And they go, Steve, you big fat so-and-so. And Bobby, you lazy git. And Big Ray, well, Ugly Ray. They just call the nicknames that men have for each other. Ugly Ray, Fat Steve. I mean, they don't dress it up. It's because they love each other. And that's what we do. We're one world. So we're going to, this show, we traveled the world. Mr. America, auf die Treppe schnell. Je vais au cinéma avec mon père qui a volé beaucoup d'argent du banque. Il est voleur. We have to stop this because I've got so much to get through. There isn't time. And you see, this is the big, you guys are fantastic. Okay, I will not, this is our show. We're building a media of a revolution together. The Mark Dolan Show has a simple goal, which is to be number one on earth, okay? And we'll get there, and we're going to get there together, you and I, with a daily show, Sunday to Thursday, inclusive. So you're amazing and brilliant, but sometimes you interrupt me. When I'm trying to get to these royal truth bombs and also calling out other celebrities and politicians and then you jump in with questions about, and asking me to sing and speak French, which I don't want to do because that is not me. I'm not a singer. Okay. So this has got, we need to redraw the boundaries so that you and I can get through some actual information about, on this occasion, the royal family and Harry's outrageous behavior in regards to the Queen, which I really am cross about it. I promise you, when I was born, which was in 1974, which is a very fun year to be born. When I was born, Candle in the Wind was number 11 in the UK singles charts. Imagine Candle in the Wind just sitting there in the charts. It didn't even get to number 1. That's how good the music was in 1974. Candle in the Wind. Didn't even get to number 1. I'm not sure it hit the top 10. Candle in the Wind. What? The greatest song ever written? Barely scraped the top 10. That's how good the music was in the 1970s. So anyhow, the lead singer of Supertramp has died this week. Supertramp, another incredible band. Aren't they fabulous? I think they did the Logical song, didn't they? Was that them? Supertramp? I think so. If Supertramp did the Logical song, let's quickly look it up and then we're going to just finish this important work that we have, you and I, to get through. Forgive me, there's been a lot of looking up lately, but I want you to know about Supertramp because the singer has passed and they are a band of genius. Yes. So your homework at the end of this show is to listen to Candle in the Wind, which was number 11 in the UK single charts when I was born. And I want you to listen to the Logical song by Supertramp, which is, all I can say, a ridiculous masterpiece. I'm not even saying that tongue in cheek. The Logical song from 1979 is an absolute beast of a track. And the poor lead singer, may he rest in peace. And we're losing too many people at the moment, too many good people. But we can't lose Harry because he won't go anywhere. He sticks around like a bad smell. So he's turned up to the UK in a public relations exercise, paying his respects to the Queen. What does he know about respect? He disrespected her. He made her life a real misery towards the end. And she was, like I was saying earlier, she should have enjoyed her final days, doing a bit of gardening and meeting the public, a couple of light royal duties. She loved to drink, the Queen, so she could have had the Dubonnet, which I think was a liqueur she enjoyed, gin and tonic. She liked a little bit of racing, not as much as her mother, who was a wild gambler. But she was adorable, the Queen. Did you know that she kept her breakfast cereal in Tupperware? Do you know what Tupperware is? This is amazing old-fashioned storage solutions, these boxes. And she had the cornflakes, and she had a very old traditional Roberts radio, which is a British brand of radio called Roberts Radio. Back in the days when we used to make things. When I save Britain, one thing we're going to do is we're going to start making things again. Because this is the country that used to make, are you ready? Rolls Royces. Have you heard of Rolls Royce? Bentley, Aston Martin, Lotus, the Mini. So we'll start making things again, because when we made stuff, architecture, not bad. Georgian architecture, I think so. What else have we made that's good? Well, Roberts Radio, by the way, and wherever you are in the world, go and buy yourself a Roberts Radio because they're beautiful. They're really nicely made. They've got wood on them. They're partly wooden. It's very rare to get 10. When I was a child, we had a TV that was completely wooden. Anyhow, look, so not 100%, but it was furniture. Our TV had like doors that folded open. And what was so great when I was a kid is that the TV, all right, it's not like now where people have to replace the TV every 3 years because it goes out of fashion. There's a new model. Our TV, we had the same thing. I'm going to tell you this really quickly because it's a great story. In the old days, in the 80s, 70s and 80s, something like a TV was really expensive. It was a massive investment. So a lot of people, to save money, rented. A TV was the equivalent of thousands of pounds. So we didn't have the money to buy a TV. So we rented for like £3 a month or £4 a month, $6 a month for this TV. And it was really good because we rented the TV. Any problem, someone would come around and fix it. Now, the first thing is this technology. These TVs were built to last and they were built to be repaired. They had screws on the back. And every couple of years, the bulb would go and it would stop working. And the man would come round and he was the TV repair guy. And that was his career. That was his job. He had a TV repair van and he had a lovely briefcase full of bulbs and wires and fuses and screwdrivers, all that. So he would remove the back of the TV and he'd replace the faulty parts. And it was really good and very environmentally friendly because you just had this TV and you would just keep fixing it and it would be in your life indefinitely. And we had a really good one of those TVs. And it was, it was in a wooden case and you had these folding doors which closed. And then when you watched TV, you would open it. That TV taught you patience because when you turned it on, you had to wait about 1 to 2 minutes for it to actually fire up because it had to kind of heat up somehow. I don't know. It was like a kind of combination of a TV and a microwave oven. I don't know what was going on, but you had to wait for it. It started as a small white dot and then it would turn into a screen. And then the other thing that TV did, no wonder everyone's so overweight now, because it made you very physically fit. Because when you wanted to change channel, you had to leap out of your armchair, run towards the TV and press a button. There was no remote. So anyway, love that TV. And we rented it for years. And then one day, my dad stopped receiving bills from the rental company. And he called them and the number didn't work. And they went out of business. But they didn't ask for the TV back. We just inherited the TV. Just one day, they just stopped asking for the money, and it was ours. And it was a beautiful thing, and we had it for many, many years to come. I think it was a Hitachi. So anyhow, that's it. That's the crazy days. But Elizabeth was like that. She valued things. She looked after her stuff. She recycled her outfits. She had a little fan heater in the room. She wouldn't heat up the whole palace because a lot of selfish, greedy, rich people, they have to heat up the whole of their house. So that if by some miracle of a rare chance they're going to go into the 18th bedroom, they want it to be warm. That's how a lot of rich people are these days. Very selfish, guzzling a lot of energy. I'd love to know how much energy is used in the Montecito mansion belonging to Harry and Meghan, my husband. And air conditioning and all the rest of it. The Queen was humble and she didn't believe in wasting taxpayers' money. And she should have enjoyed her final days with her Tupperware and her Roberts radio and her fan heater, reading books, meeting with her family, having simple, delicious food, drinking the Dubonnet, doing a little gambling. That should have been her life. Take an afternoon nap and light royal duties. Instead, she has to deal with the wrecking ball that is her grandson and his twisted, manipulative wife, who are plotting extraordinary damage on the royal family that she's devoted her life to. So she's gone to bed every night with that on her mind about, what's going to be in this book. And it would have been better if he'd published it when she was alive, because then she could have done him for treason. Because the other definition of treason, by the way, is helping a country's enemies. Well, I consider Meghan Markle to be an enemy of the United Kingdom. Of course she is. Of course she is, because she has allowed extraordinary harm to be cast upon the royal family. If you hurt the royal family, you hurt Britain. That's what I was saying, by the way, earlier, whether the tricky with the president, because it's the head of state, so you love the president, you love the office of it, but then it's the head of government, that's political, and only half of you love the political side. So it's difficult for Americans. They're compromised in their relationship with the president. Because in a way, all Americans should love the president because it's the office. But then if it's a politician, only half of them do. It's a paradox. I mean, don't get me wrong. America's doing very, very well. It needs no help from the United Kingdom. The independence project's been successful. It's been successful. So that's fine. But we're lucky here because what we have is we have a head of government. That's the prime minister, who we're allowed to criticize and everything and not like or like. Almost no one does at the moment, like our prime minister, but that's fine. That's democracy. And then you've got the head of state, who everyone can love, which I think is really smart. And everybody loved Elizabeth. So not only should she have enjoyed her final years, but couldn't because of Harry being a spoiled brat. And by the way, she had to have meetings with Meghan Markle to straighten her out and to get her to behave properly, because Meghan was allegedly attacking undergardeners and rude to staff. Right? Those are allegations. It's been well reported that the Queen had a summit with Meghan and said, look, we're really, really careful how we conduct ourselves around the staff because we're royals and therefore very privileged. And these folk are on ordinary salaries and we're very lucky to have them. And therefore we treat them with respect and kindness. And a good friend of mine is Grant Harold, who's the former royal butler. And he said that, yeah, the Queen and William and Charles, okay, they're not like best mates, but there's real respect there for the underlings, for the staff, and there's nothing like, you're just a speck of dust on the carpet. No, you're another human being. And Charles will be asking butlers and other servants, how's your family and what are your plans for Christmas? And your mother's kidney. How's your mother's kidneys? Great memory. Charles has a crazy memory, remembers everything about everyone. So they're lovely. And Meghan Markle allegedly rode roughshod over that by being obnoxious to an undergardener and others who didn't do things the way that she wanted, because what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. So the Queen has to deal with this upstart and have meetings about Meghan. And then she's got to worry about this book. And the Queen did everything, the Queen broke all royal protocol to make Meghan feel comfortable, including allowing Meghan to join the family for Christmas before they were married, which is, wait for it, a privilege that was not even granted to William and Catherine, who are going to be king and queen. And they didn't get that privilege, and Meghan Markle did. But it wasn't enough, because nothing's enough for Meghan Markle. Thomas Markle gave her $500,000, and that wasn't enough, for her education. He loved her so much, she was his little princess. And he sent a limo to pick her up from school to take her to the TV studio where he was a lighting director. She was his life. And what's happened? She's gaslit him and dumped him and thrown him away. He lives in the Philippines now. He's in the Filipinas in a high-rise apartment that overlooks a 7-lane highway, okay, with incredibly environmentally unfriendly Filipinist cars, okay, going past very quickly, keeping awake at night. Oh my goodness, I can't get any sleep. Sometimes I lay awake at night in my un-air-conditioned apartment, sweating my knackers off, watching reruns of Suits, because that's the only connection I have with Meghan these days. So that's what she does to people, and she can do that to her own father, and she can do that to Queen Elizabeth. And let's just, the judge in court cases always say aggravating factor. And do you know what the aggravating factor is? The aggravating factor is the fact that Philip passed away. And she had to worry about that book whilst mourning Philip. How dare he? I'm sorry, it's unforgivable. Which is why I'm not having him prancing around with a bloody wreath at her grave. He should be at his grave. He should be at her grave. Let's not get carried away. He should be at her grave, on his knees, begging for forgiveness and praying to the Lord for forgiveness, asking everyone for forgiveness. He should write "forgive me" on his forehead, the wrong way round, so that you can see what it says in the mirror. That's what needs to happen. So he's got a PR exercise, doubtless stagecraft, choreographed by Meghan Markle, my husband. But it's an insult to the Queen that he should be there to be accidentally photographed by a very clever passerby. That's convenient, isn't it? It's convenient that his appearance in Windsor was photographed. It's convenient. It's really, really convenient. It's convenient. Clever passerby should photograph him in Windsor. I'm sorry. What I'm doing here today on your behalf is I'm fighting for Elizabeth. Okay? I'm fighting for her memory, for my queen. That's what I mentioned. I was born in 1974. I got sidetracked about Supertramp and Candle in the Wind. What I wanted to tell you is that she was the queen when I was born. I could cry. She was my queen. She was the head of state of the great country that transformed the fortunes of my family. My parents are Irish. They came to England in the early 60s. And they made a whole life here. So I'm an Irishman and a proud Brit. I'm both. And she was my queen. And I remember the Jubilee and all of that stuff. I was a little, how old was I at the Jubilee? Three or four. I say I remember. I've got the pictures. There's pictures of me in the Union Jack and all the rest of it, right? The garden parties. So I'm fighting for the Queen because she was my queen and I loved her very much. So we're going to pick this up in tomorrow's show because Harry's here for the week. We've got so much to talk about. But before we go, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. This is my interview on Talk TV. I do occasional shows on Talk, which used to be Talk Radio. Now it's a kind of online TV and radio network. It's called Talk. And I appeared on Talk earlier today, and I had the privilege of interviewing the fearless royal commentator, Lady C. So I'll let Lady C finish off the show. She can sing out the show, and we'll pick up this conversation about Harry and his shocking insult to the Queen in tomorrow's programme. Stay awesome, have a good one, and I'll see you then. Bye for now. Prince Harry, who has returned to the UK to attend the Well Child Awards in London. Today he's been to Windsor Castle, where he laid a wreath and privately paid respect to the late Queen, who passed 3 years ago to this day. Well, should King Charles grant Prince Harry, the prodigal prince, a royal audience? Let's get the views of the leading royal commentator and author, Lady Colin Campbell. Lady Colin Campbell, do you think the king should meet Harry?
Absolutely not. I think it would be a fatal error to meet Harry. There's no reason why he should. It's not going to work in his favour. It's not going to work in favour of Prince William. I think it would be a gross error because anything that happened in the meeting could be twisted, unless, of course, there would be a witness, as there was at the last meeting, the 12-minute meeting at Clarence House, when the Queen, the present Queen, Camilla, made sure that she was in the room the whole time. No, there's no advantage to meeting with Harry. Harry and Meghan are actually playing a very nasty game at the moment. They are trying to be as divisive as possible in terms of damaging not only the King's reputation, but William's reputation, the relationship between William and the King, and just generally casting the royal family into a no-win situation, which I actually do not think is Harry's orchestration. I don't think he has the brains to do this. I think it's Meghan who has come up with this no-win situation. And Meghan is very good at creating no-win situations for people. And I really don't see how the king could possibly win by having a meeting with Harry, save to palliate the mainstream media, who want to keep the whole drama going for as long as possible because it provides them with content.
Of course it does. And can I ask you, Lady Colin Campbell, do you think, you've got your ear to the ground, do you think a meeting between the two men will happen this week?
I don't like predicting, so I want to be very careful.
Could it happen without us knowing?
No. It's not possible. Won't happen without us knowing. And the king won't take Harry's phone calls or communicate with Harry in any way, shape and form. And let's remember that all of the threats that Harry and Meghan have issued against the king and against the Prince and Princess of Wales and Camilla, they still hang over their heads. None of this has been resolved. I think it would be a fatal error for the king to meet Harry. And the last time, he had no intention of meeting Harry. The only way that Harry was able to come over was that once he was in the air, he actually got in touch with the king's office and said, I am on a plane, I'm coming over. And so the king was obliged, really, to receive him, and in fact had to postpone his departure from Clarence House to Sandringham so that he could receive Harry. So the last time he was bounced into receiving Harry. I don't see that there is any justifiable reason and good sense in him meeting Harry.
We know, Lady Colin Campbell, sadly, that the king is battling cancer. He's in his 70s now, and therefore, at a certain point, and let's hope it's a long time from now, he will pass. Is it possible that Harry may not see his father again?
Oh, I think if the end were near, nearer than it is, and I don't think it's particularly near. Let's put it that way. I think if the end were nearer than it is at the moment, there might be a rethink, a sort of deathbed reconciliation. But at the moment, no, Harry's too dangerous and Meghan is too dangerous. And I mean, the only way that any meeting will proceed is if it is in such a tightly sewn up way that Harry would not be able to misuse it. Meghan wouldn't be able to misuse it. And the king would therefore feel, well, he's getting the press off his back. Because, I mean, let's remember, the king is the one who has been injured by Harry. Harry has injured the king. The king hasn't injured Harry. And when the press go on about, oh, it's time to forgive Harry, nowhere in the prodigal son tale is there that the prodigal son was unrepentant. The prodigal son was repentant and said that he would come back as the least of his father's servants, and he would do whatever he wanted to make good. And so when the press comes up with, oh, it's time to forgive Harry.
Yes.
Yeah, it's time to forgive Harry because they want to have more news stories to rabbit on about.
I think you're probably right. I might be guilty of that myself on YouTube, the Mark Dolan Show. But Lady Colin Campbell, how can people see your excellent commentary online? Where do they go to?
Oh, I have a YouTube channel called Lady Colin Campbell.
There you go. And it's well worth a watch. Lady Colin Campbell, really nice to see you again. We'll catch up soon.